On? Lee Sanders here from the RCWR show. I am coming at you guys with a special Broken Skull Sessions Undertaker review. Welcome to those of you that maybe had checked out the Survivor Series pay-per-view recap. Those of you that had watched the initial live stream, I did tell you guys I was going to edit that show for on demand and on the downloads, and I was going to immediately watch the Broken Skull Sessions with Undertaker, and I managed to do both of them at the same time to try to save a little bit more on time so I can do a quick turnaround as best as possible to review this. So I do appreciate you guys that's maybe checking this out live, or those of you that's going to be checking this out on demand and on the downloads. Look, I love this. I had got the vibes early on that this was going to be like can't miss. It was going to deliver on so many standpoints. I just went into this blindly just going, it's going to be good. And the one thing that for me was, it's going to be so good. It's going to be an instant classic. Just remembering what Steve Austin had did on the WWE Network the first go round with his show and everything. And that was just awesome. And it is something that we have been clamoring, that we have been asking WWE for with regards to network content ever since we got word that, oh, well, it looks like there's not going to be any more Steve Austin content on the network. Like, what the hell? You had a really good thing going on here. And see, stuff like what we got with tonight's premiere of Broken Skull Sessions. If you have the WWE network, content like that is why you're keeping it around. I mean, of course, the pay-per-views without a shadow of doubt. But if you're kind of like me, you're accessing the WWE network for more than just the pay-per-views. By the pay-per-views, I mean the current pay-per-views that be coming out monthly, right? No. You want to go more deeper than just checking out the pay-per-views, because you have a lot of people, that's the only reason why they got the WWE network, is to solely just check out the pay-per-views. I don't roll like that. I like checking out all kinds of old school stuff, interview formats. I'm a sucker for that. And WWE, to their credit, off and on over the years, we've seen Legends of Wrestling, that great roundtable series they had with Jim Ross. WWE Network, I need for you guys, Vince McMahon, I need for you guys to work on that. I think in 2020, well, I might as well say 2020 now, because we're pretty much there and beyond. Like, we need that type of content. The shoot interview style type of format. Legends with JBL, that was like awesome on so many levels. And I like what Corey Graves is doing right now with his podcast and everything. That's phenomenal as well. Maybe we could see a webcast version of that on the network in the near future, right? But with Broken Skull Sessions doing its thing, oh my God, this is great. My only complaint, I wish we were getting this on a weekly basis. But in case you guys had missed it, the way they're doing Broken Skull Sessions, it's only going to be one episode a month. You heard me right. One episode a month. I'm hoping that's going to change at some point, later down the road. But man, this Undertaker joint, if y'all did not get a chance to check it out yet, maybe you don't have the WWE network, sign up for the free trial. They're always offering a free trial. This episode alone is worth it. It is worth having a subscription to the network just to see, right? And I got to give WWE a lot of props for making this happen, particularly Vince McMahon. Because obviously when it's all said and done, Vince McMahon is the one that's ultimately given the blessing on, okay, yeah, go ahead, go for it and everything. And I say that because remember how close we were to seeing The Undertaker involved with Conrad Thompson. Remember, there was going to be that thing going on. Undertaker was going to be part of StarCast, and WWE, aka Vince McMahon and crew, got a whiff of that, and they stepped in there and was like, oh, no. And the way it looked as though things were mapping out, and I'll rely on you guys a little bit because my memory is a little bit fuzzy right now, but I remember that there was some trademarks that were filed, and I want to say it had something to do with the Dead Man podcast or something along those lines. And you're looking at that when you hear that report and everything, and you're going, well, wait a minute. Just the fact that Undertaker has been announced for StarCast, right? Or Mark Calloway, you're like, wait a minute here. How long is this going to last exactly? Like, no. Who dropped the ball on this one? There's no way this is going to fly. And sure enough, it didn't take that long, but WWE essentially made Taker an offer he couldn't refuse, and boom, the rest is pretty much history. But you kind of can't help but wonder, okay, if that WWE deal did not fall through, what we saw with tonight's premiere of Broken Skull Sessions, was it even going to come close to what Conrad had envisioned as far as his ultimate plans go, right? I would love to hear Conrad in a next interview be asked that question, as far as that, was that how he was picturing things to go with Mark Calloway's involvement with him StarCast weekend and everything, or was it something else that he had kind of mapped out and everything? This was a great start, a great, I'm gonna kick that door open and bam, I am in that son of a bitch. This was a good, strong series premiere for Broken Skull Sessions. I enjoyed it. Let's get into a couple of bullet points about this that I do want to talk about for those of you that don't have the network, maybe won't be checking out the network just yet, or you just honestly want to get my take on how this episode was and everything. First off, Steve Austin and Undertaker, you could legitimately feel their friendship. Great chemistry with each other. And Lady K, I got to give her a mad shout out. She summed it up perfectly, because I was very complimentary of this on Twitter, and Lady K responded to it, and she said, it was almost like we were a fly on the wall that was just in a great position where we could hear two old buddies shooting the shit. And it's like, yes, exactly, Lady K. That is exactly how it was with this. Their chemistry, you could just legitimately feel it. There was no awkwardness whatsoever. They just flowed very well. And the other thing that I love about the way that this was so laid back, so loose, was Steve Austin busting out a bottle of Jack Daniels, and they must have went to it at least 3 times. No lush drinking going on or anything, but they went to it at least 3 times. And at one point, Steve says to Taker, I know you don't really drink that much. And Taker's like, yeah, I don't. It's very rare that I drink, but when I do, yeah, that is definitely my favorite drink. Yeah, that's my drink of choice. And some of the stories that they were it was great. It was great. So some of many other topics that was covered was, of course, Taker's early days, how he first started into the world of pro wrestling, working in the Memphis territory and everything, leaving, learning about the business, rather, is what I was trying to say. Learning about the business, eating crap sandwiches early on, right? Paying your dues. That's basically what it's all about. And a really fun story was told about Soul Taker, aka Papa Shango, aka Godfather, aka Good Father. That was nice how that just the type of transition that we went into, and you're like, oh wow, right? And you're seeing all the old school pictures from Papa Shango when he was Soul Taker from back in the day and everything. And of course, everything that led up to Undertaker Mark Calloway hooking up with Danny to form the Skyscrapers and everything. And there was a really great story that was told as far as Mark Calloway eventually coming into WCW and everything. And the way that pretty much had went down, it was basically through some proper channels. There was an injury. I can't remember who had the injury in WCW, but there was an injury that had went down. And basically, the respective promotion that Taker was at, they pretty much, the people in WCW, they were like, hey, you know, we had a guy that went out on injury and, you know, we're in a little bit of a rough spot here. You got anybody that maybe we can take on down to the plant and, you know, work on them a little bit, you know, somebody that maybe has a lot of potential. And Mark Calloway's name was mentioned, and pretty much the rest was history, as they say. So Mark Calloway hooking up with Danny to form the Skyscrapers, and Taker told a really cool story about how at one of the Clash of Champion events, the Skyscrapers have fought against the Road Warriors and everything, and it was out in Chicago, and just talking about heat basically, and the way he sets up the story, you're led to the impression that once the match was over and everything, that Calloway was going to be in trouble. But on the contrary, he ended up not getting in trouble at all. If anything, the boys, Road Warriors, they actually love what had happened and everything. They're like, oh man, you guys did fantastic. And I guess really because Danny, Calloway's tag partner, was kind of egging him on that, oh man, they're probably not going to like that, right? So he's getting his head all messed up and everything. And when Road Warriors come back, Taker is ready for freaking, oh man, they're probably going to come in here. They're probably going to want to kick my ass, but I'm staying. I'm right here. I'm going to hold it down. I ain't backing down. And they pretty much went back there. Oh, man, that heat you gave us. Oh, man, that was great. You guys did fantastic. And all that. And weird. Danny, after all that is over, they're riding together. Danny drops him off at the hotel and tells him, hey, I'm done. And Taker's like, what do you mean you're done? He's like, I'm done. I've had enough of this. You take care. Drove off, and that's like the last time he saw him and everything. And as you all know from your WCW days and all that, Calloway had went on a singles run for a hot minute. His contract had came up for renewal and everything. And you want to talk about getting smacked in the face a couple of times and then getting a foot in your ass as you're heading out the door. He has this infamous conversation with Jim Barnett, Jim Herd, Ole Anderson. I mean, you've heard about these stories, some of these stories off and on over the years, but to finally be in a position where you can hear it from Taker's mouth, it just the weight of it and everything, right? You're like, wow, like I can't believe that. So he has this infamous meeting with Jim Barnett, freaking Jim Herd, who we've heard nothing but bad things about over the years, and freaking Ole Anderson. I've yet to find but only a small handful of people that appreciated the work of Ole Anderson when he was the booker in WCW and all that. But they basically had told Mark Calloway, hey, look, it was Ole. It was Ole. And really need to stress that because that was something that Taker did reiterate twice there, that it was Ole. Essentially all of them, but Ole that said the magical words, hey, look, you got a great size and everything like that, but, let's be honest, no one is going to pay money to see you, right? And so you talk about air getting sucked out of you, right? Can you just imagine that? Can you just imagine somebody is telling you, as whatever it is, you are a aspiring painter, you are an aspiring computer programmer or a podcaster or whatever, and somebody comes at you and they say, yeah, look, man, you're not going to draw. Like, seriously, stop what you're doing. Like, go work at Dunkin' Donuts or something, because this isn't for you. Can you just imagine having that wind just sucked out of you? And you're like, gee, way to motivate somebody here. And Calloway could have easily just said, okay, well, so much for a pro wrestling career. Guess I'll go work at a dock or be a bouncer or some shit like that. Yeah, his confidence is already shaken up, and then at this point he's like, well, let me just try to see what I can do to go holler at WWE, then WWF at the time. And remember when Paul Heyman over in the WCW days was briefly managing him and everything, Paul Heyman, you talk about somebody that was trying to do their best to look out. Even Paul Heyman way back then knew what Mark Calloway was capable of and everything. And, to Calloway's credit, he had already put out a couple of feelers trying to get connections to Vince McMahon and everything up in Stamford. But Paul Heyman had expedited it even more and everything. And a great, hilarious story was told by Taker on the first time that he meets Vince McMahon and everything, goes to his house and all that. The night before, he's hanging out with Paul Heyman. They go to this club or whatever, and they're having a good time or whatever. And like as they're making their way to this club, he actually splits his pants. Taker, he splits his pants, so he has like this big old freaking hole, and it's not like a hole the size of $1. I mean, basically, you can see both of his butt cheeks, right? So like big old hole in the back. And so they're going to this club, and Taker's like, Paulie, like, nah, man, like, we got to get these pants fixed. I need these pants. These supposed to be for my interview tomorrow. Like, come on. And Heyman's like, don't worry about it. They got one of the girls here at the club. They know how to sew. And Taker's already like, hey, man, we ain't going to find no girl that's going to be able to sew. Like, what the hell, right? And so he is sitting in this club the whole time, not dancing, not making his way to the bar, just hilarious. And he's never able to get these pants hooked up. So he goes to this first meeting with Vince McMahon, working the charm and everything like that. And he's doing everything in his power to make sure that nobody can see his rear end, right? Just hilarious as the story is being told. And one of the things that Vince McMahon is asking him is, okay, so, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's some of your hobbies? Tell me something that I don't know, that most people don't know. And Taker's like, well, I'm a really good singer. I like to sing a lot when I'm in the bathroom, when I'm taking a shower and all that. And Vince is like, you like to sing, huh? And Taker at that point, he's like, oh, fuck. Because he's already seen some of the hokey dokey stuff that Vince and crew are doing in WWE, and like, hey, look, a job is a job, but he's going, oh, fuck, I just set myself up. I just shot myself in the foot. What am I getting myself into? But he plays it off, nice straight face and everything. That meeting ends with Vince telling Taker, well, hey, look, sorry, but I don't have anything for you right now, but I'll definitely keep you in mind. Maybe we could try again in a couple of months or whatever, but I don't have anything right now. And so, boom, another blow to Taker there, right? It's like, oh man, what the hell? Like, what the hell do you do right here? But luckily, some months go by or whatever, and he gets word that, they got something cool in the works for him and everything. Just, hang in there, stand by. And one day he's watching TV, and he sees that infamous freaking egg. Y'all know the egg that I'm talking about. You know what hatched out of that egg. He thought maybe that was going to be him. And he damn near gave himself a panic attack just thinking about that damn thing when he was recanting the story, letting us know, as viewers, how he was feeling during that moment. He's seeing these vignettes, and all he can think is, I'm the Eggman. They're going to have me shave my head. They're going to have me shave my facial hair. They're going to have me shave my eyebrows, and I am just going to be Eggman, right? And one day the phone rings. It's Vince McMahon, and Vince goes, hey, I'm looking for the Undertaker. And he's like, is this the Undertaker? And Mark is like, Undertaker. And so he's kind of like thinking about it real quick, and he's like, okay, so it's not Eggman. Like, I don't know what Undertaker is. I haven't seen anything Undertaker. Yeah, this is Undertaker. Oh, great. Yeah, so come on down next week. We'll get started. And pretty much the rest was history. So it was really cool because during this episode, you see some of the concept designs. And we've kind of seen little teases of it here and there, but it was really refreshing to go back and actually see even more original thumbnail drawings, inked drawings of what Vince was picturing and everything in his mind of the Undertaker and everything. And it was badass. And for those of you that's been curious about, with regards to the Undertaker gimmick, like, who takes the credit here for, okay, so Vince McMahon came up with the designs and everything, and he had essentially the core of what the character was about, which was like this, Midwestern, kind of some entity from like the Wild West, basically, Undertaker, kind of like a dark, kind of very mystique character and everything. And so early on, it was about Vince McMahon giving Mark Calloway, direction and everything. Like, here's the gimmick, and both of them, it was a collaboration effort. But as far as the mannerisms, as far as walking down to the ring, as far as talking, really connecting with the character, the overall psychology of that character, here's a bombshell. And I'm really surprised that of all the things that we've heard over the years, now maybe to his credit, he said it before, I've missed it, But Mark Calloway credited Jake the Snake Roberts for all of those things concerning The Undertaker. Jake the Snake Roberts would pull Undertaker to the side and be like, hey, look, try this. And I mean, he was very instrumental in tuning the hell out of the Taker persona and giving Mark Calloway pointers on how to really properly execute it. Gave him a lot of props, talking about just his overall in-ring psychology and all that. Now, for me, that was refreshing to my ears because, you guys got to forgive me. If he's Jake the Snake Roberts, if he's mentioned this before, I don't know anything about it because typically the transcripts I usually see of a Jake the Snake Roberts interview or any audio interview I've listened of Jake Roberts, it's always just the usual stuff. What was it like working with the Macho Man? Oh, hey, what was it like working with Andre the Giant? Oh, hey, you remember that one program you had there with so-and-so? And, you usually hear just the same rotating questions over and over and over again, right? And so for me, that perked my ears up big time to hear that. I never knew. And even Steve Austin was thrown off by that because when Taker asked Steve to take a guess, Steve could not think of anybody. His first reaction was Vince, and Taker was like, no, not Vince. It was one of the boys. And so Steve's like, one of the boys, and he's thinking, and he's trying to, like, you can see his gears just going, trying to think like during that time frame early on, and like Steve can't figure out for the love of him who it is. And when Taker mentions Jake Roberts, Steve looks shocked as hell, right? So you're like, wow, that's badass, right? But like as the years had progressed, the collaborative relationship between Vince and Mark Calloway got to a point where Vince could just be like, oh, hey, whatever you feel is comfortable, I trust your judgment, right? It's kind of like, hey, I created this baby, but you're doing such a great job with this character. Like, I've now gotten to that point. I can trust you with it, right? Here's the keys to the car. Go ahead, run with it and everything. And if anything, they would just, as the years progress, and he said they have a really, really great relationship. They're friends and everything. And they have butted heads over the years over, matches or creative ideals or whatever. But at the end of the day, as far as Calloway is concerned, it's all about getting the job done. Might be some stuff in between that needs to be worked out, but at the end of the day, whatever needs to happen ultimately does happen for the good of the business, right? And that was one of the main key themes that you kept hearing a lot during this interview, was about how Calloway, was the type of individual that he was just so humbled. He was just so appreciative of the fact that, here he was basically being shown these doors, particularly from WCW, being shut in his face. And Vince McMahon was the one that gave him his opportunity. And so, as far as he's concerned, no matter what Vince wanted, no matter how silly or whatever, Vince McMahon was the one that gave him his opportunity. And for that, he was always appreciative. He was always grateful. So whatever needed to be done, right, wrong, and different, he was going to freaking do it. So early on there, you're like, okay, so this is a loyal, and I mean, we all know this, but to hear it from his own mouth and telling some of these key stories, you're going, okay, it's a really awesome trait that anybody would want in a friend, right? Somebody that is very loyal through thick and thin, right? Good times, bad times, right? They are there for you and everything. And another thing that was touched upon was the different incarnations of The Undertaker over the years, right? Just kind of tying it all into Vince McMahon. Hey, I trust you and everything. So, interesting story here, okay? So, remember right before Undertaker had popped up as American Badass? Okay, so set that up properly. Taker was supposed to return a lot sooner. However, he was dealing with a groin injury. So when he went out and had his first hiatus there, before we saw him as American Badass, he was dealing with a groin injury. And then just a couple of weeks before he was to return, he tore his pec muscle. So as a result of tearing that pec muscle, all right, well, that just tacked on even more months. So long story short, Taker's gone for like essentially a year, right? And Attitude Era, all of that stuff that's going on, he knew that he needed to refresh this character. He knew he needed to revamp it and everything. And that's something, he really credited was, his timing has always been superb as far as knowing when it's time to tweak his character a bit, because his whole thing was the last thing he wanted to do was be stale. And if he's already starting to think that his character is becoming stale, well, 9 out of 10, the fans are probably already thinking that as well. They're probably a little bit ahead of him. So before everything really hits the fan, okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit. And so to be able to come back as American Badass and all that, and keep in mind, he got Vince's blessing. This was something that he wanted to do. Vince trusted him. Said, okay, let's see what happens. And the rest is pretty much history and everything. And then with regards to Big Evil, right? Big Evil was just, when you really look at it, it was just a more amped up hybrid of what we saw of American Badass, kind of merging American Badass and Undertaker, right? Classic Undertaker together and everything like that, but just a more hybrid version of American Badass. You could essentially say American Badass 2.0, right? And then to be able to flip it again and then go back to the Undertaker, essentially we've come to know and love, just more modified, right? Clothing wise and all that. Steve Austin credited him. He said, going back to Legends of JBL, because they did like a roundtable discussion and everything, and Taker's name was brought up, and they credited Taker for always having his finger on the pulse and being able to adapt with the times and everything, great longevity and everything. And Mark Calloway basically had said he just always kind of knew like when it was time to just switch it up and try something different and everything. A little bit of luck, great timing and everything. So I just thought that was really bad about, okay, so how did American Badass come about? Like, whose idea was it and all that? And for Vince McMahon to just have that much trust in Mark Calloway, his vision and all that, that tells me sincerely, straight up, how much respect McMahon has for Calloway and everything. There's also a really cool story about Cypress Hill and basically Undertaker getting down with Cypress Hill, drinking, and he wasn't puffing, but he definitely has showed Cypress Hill and a few other people how he likes to get down. Monday Night War, for those of you that were a little bit curious about, what was Taker's psychology? He had the front row seat there for 83 weeks. What was it like for him seeing everything that was going down? And as far as he was concerned, he knew how smart of a man Vince McMahon was. He knew that what was happening over in WCW was only going to be temporary. He knew that, okay, well, WCW is striking hot. They're striking gold because not for nothing, but to hear Taker even out of his own mouth, we were outdated. Our product was very outdated, right down to the target audience that, we were aiming towards. We didn't reflect with the times and everything. And he credited Vince. He said, I knew that eventually Vince was going to turn it around and everything. What was happening with WCW, that it was just temporary. And no matter what, even if it was a case where WWE went sinking, he was not going to go running back to WCW. He was not going to do it. Now, as great of a interview as this was, there is a couple of areas where I wish Steve Austin would have, hey, let's take care of these rumors right now, right? And let's address this. And there was a perfect window of opportunity there after Taker had said, yeah, no matter what, if the ship has sunk down, nah, you're not going to see me out. There was no way I was going to go back to that company, not after what was said to me and everything. Vince McMahon was very loyal to me, da da da. even if it sounded as though just the way I laid it out, okay, so he answered the question, I still would have followed up and said, so, we heard reports, little rumors over the years that at one point your contract was up for renewal and everything, and that WCW, Eric Bischoff and them, that they were interested in you. Any truth to that? Can you validate that? What's the story behind that? I wish that would have been asked and we could have got a definitive answer, because I know that was a question that was asked on 83 Weeks, and Eric Bischoff, it's like his freaking trademark on one of his shirts. He can't really recall if there was ever serious talks about Taker. He's kind of leaning towards no. I think even right down to the point, as far as he can recollect, no offer was extended to Taker and all that. Now, at the same time, Bischoff has said many times that over the years, we're talking decades here, as far as him remembering certain things, his memory is not as, like it used to be. So it really would have been nice to hear Steve Austin just double down, go in there and get Mark to go on record and everything, because so many cool stories that Mark Calloway was telling, the fine attention to the detail and everything. You're like, wow, for this guy to know all of this stuff, these little tiny little stories and all that from decades prior, he's pretty sharp. He knows his stuff. That's he's taking care of himself. Obviously, you can say what you want about physically, but as far as mentally goes, he's got a damn good memory, like a damn elephant, right? So thought that was interesting. Also, the other thing that was interesting here, just looking at the notes here real quick, and we're actually almost done, mind you, so this ain't nowhere where we're reviewing this for like an hour. I would say at most we probably might take it up maybe about another 10 minutes. Now, he talked about the infamous picture from WrestleMania 28, the one where it's got Triple H, HBK, Triple H, HBK, and him that's in it. Yeah, he said, man, after that match had went down, I ain't think I was coming back. And what you saw with the three of us at the top of the ramp, end of an era and all that, I felt that was it. That was the last time you guys were going to be seeing me. And that moment that we had all embracing each other, that was organic. That was not scripted in any type of way, right? So, of course, that was the eventual setup for everything that had went down at WrestleMania 30, where the streak had ended 21-1. You got Steve Austin saying, okay, knowing now, but just back then, seeing your streak, like, do you feel in retrospect that should have been how you went out? The streak is over and that's it. And, Taker was like, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Walk away. And he was like, truth be told, and never knew this one. I mean, you knew that there was some medical issues. You knew there was a health scare there with Taker, because we remember seeing on the WWE Network the 24/7 special covering that, if you guys remember, right? You had Vince McMahon, get an ambulance, you saw that and you're like, holy crap, right? But he was actually concussed, Taker. He was actually concussed in that match. And you're like, wait, what? You're like, seriously? And that was just, for me, I had to rewind that twice when I heard that. He was actually concussed in like the first 4 minutes of that match. And he doesn't know exactly where the concussion had occurred. The only thing he could recall was like the last thing he did earlier in the afternoon. And everything for his memory and all that being restored picked back up around 4, 5 o'clock in the morning when he's in the hospital and he's being checked on by doctors, every several minutes. And they're asking him, what's your name? What's your birthday? Do you know where you are? Do you know what city this is? Who's the president? Questions like that. And the only thing that he can remember is his wife, Michelle. And he's asking her, hey, help me out here. Where am I? What's my birthday? And she's like, no, I'm not giving you any of that info. You got to be straight up honest with these guys. They're trying to help you and everything. So yeah, he was concussed at some point during that match and everything, and he was showing some of the highlights from that match as he and Steve were talking, and he was going, yeah, you could see right here, it's obvious I'm lethargic right here. It's like you see that nothing, I might be moving, but yeah, man, nothing's clicking in that brain there. It's just cruise control and everything. And you're just going, wow, like seriously, wow. But as far as Taker was concerned, as far as the streak coming to an end, basically, yeah, you could make the argument that, maybe that should have been it. And he kind of felt as though maybe that was it. But then, he comes right back, right? And then you look at that whole period where he had the 2 WrestleManias with Shawn Michaels, and then he had the 2 WrestleManias with Triple H. As far as Taker is concerned, he looks at that 4-year period as a block. He looks at that as a saga, basically. And I never did look at it like that. All these years, I never looked at it that way. So it's kind of nice to have a different interpretation of it and everything. But the one thing that was kind of cool was once he did the 2 matches with Shawn Michaels, and then he and Triple H basically had the follow, they both were kind of like, shit, how the hell are we going to top the joint with Shawn? Like, where we go from here, And so I think all of us can be in agreement. What happened with the end of an era match, that was good. I mean, that was damn good. That was damn good. I know technically Triple H and Taker, they actually met 3 times, but for me, end of an era, that for me was just, I love that. I love that tremendously. Again, going back to the whole, time to retire and all that. You've seen there was those past couple of WrestleManias, even the most infamous one where Taker had put his hat and all that in the middle of the ring, right? And for those of you that may be joining us right now, we did try to title this the best that we could. This is the Broken Skull Sessions Undertaker review. And we made sure we put the review in the thumbnail. So you guys that's expecting the full episode, come on, man. We're doing this on YouTube. By now, as far as full uploaded content, that's not happening. That thing gonna get pulled so quick, it ain't even funny. We're reviewing it. I'm giving you my reaction to it. I'm giving it the endorsement. I'm hoping that by reviewing it, you guys will definitely go out of your way, check it out. But most importantly, share with me your thoughts on how you had enjoyed it. That way, if we get enough comments, we can kind of follow up on a future episode of the RCWR show and read you all's comments and everything. But yeah, you had that one infamous WrestleMania where Taker put his in-ring gear and all that stuff in the middle of the ring, and like, okay, that's it. It's a career. He legitimately thought he was done. His mind was made up. He was done. But like a couple of months go by and everything, and boom, he's right at it again. And it got to a point where there is a running joke amongst his family. He's like pulling Danny Glover and freaking Lethal Weapon and everything. And you're like, oh, hey, this is it. I'm going to retire. And it's like, yeah, whatever. We hear you talking, like, whatever, right? And so it's just kind of gotten to that point where, is he continuing to deal with physical problems? Yes, he is. He's continuing to deal with the physical problems. But at this stage of his career, Taker feels as though he needs to continue to go out there, and he needs to continue to prove that he still has what it takes. I don't know what that is, guys. And I really wish Steve Austin would have just, for me, listening to Taker say that, it just felt like he still has the butterflies, just to kind of borrow a line from, I think it was Rocky Balboa. Remember? And Paulie is like, what do you mean you got something? And Rocky's like, I still got it in my stomach. I still got those butterflies, right? And that's essentially what's still going on with Taker. Taker still feels like, hey, as far as the challenges that I'm facing now, the challenges is basically, hey, getting that call from Vince, and Vince needs a favor. He needs for me to do this match or, do this. And the challenge for him is to basically rise to that occasion, be able to prove that he can still go out there and I guess, still be reliable, still put in those great quality matches and everything. And it's like, my God, a 30+ year career and you still feel like you need to go in there and you need to prove yourself. It's like, come on. They even talked about the match in Saudi Arabia that Taker had with Goldberg. I mean, they kind of just breezed on by real quick and everything, but Taker basically said, hey, look, stuff like that, it happens. And he did admit, he said when the concussion had went down at WrestleMania 30 in that match against Brock, he did admit that as long as he had been wrestling, he always he was always conscious of everything that was going on with him and everything. But like when that had happened, that shook his confidence a little bit. And he started kind of second guessing himself and everything. And so I guess you can kind of say as a result of kind of what had happened there, that just kind of, and just still having the butterfly, still having that bug, it's just, okay, let's keep chasing it, right? Yeah, physically, I'm not doing too good these days. I've had so many surgeries and everything, but I still got that bug, right? I still feel like I got to go out there and I got to prove myself and everything. And so that's exactly what continues to happen with Taker right on up to this day. But yeah, he quickly just glanced over the whole Goldberg match and everything and was like, it wasn't a great performance and everything, but you see how fast I turned around and I did my next match. And, just when I'm beating myself up, I'm second guessing and everything, I have this other match. And, one thing that he did touch upon that was very important to him, which was, and it was really like a message that any wrestler should be able to relate to, which is, you can't go in there and you can't wonder what's going to happen when you're in that match, right? You can't worry about, okay, is my knee going to give out or is this going to happen? And both men just kind of played off of that and basically was like, yeah, because that's how you'll seriously injure yourself. And then that's how you'll injure your dance partner. And like, that's the last thing you want to do, basically. And so, it was nice hearing, that side from Taker as well, but, my 2 cents from a distance, this just feels like a man that at this point wants to continue to contribute. He feels like, hey, I'm always here. I am capable. I want to continue to contribute. It's gotten to that point where he's even asking guys like Triple H, Shawn Michaels, hey, you would tell me if it's time to retire, right? But how do you do that? How do you do that with a guy like Undertaker, right? I mean, of course, it would have to be peer versus peer, but then even at that, like, how can you even have that conversation, right? And he actually gave Shawn Michaels a serious nod because he said, like, and Steve Austin to a degree as well, but he basically said, Steve, not for nothing, but you pretty much had the tires taken from under you, but still it was a position where, hey, it's not you making the call, but, this is how it is and you got to deal with it. Shawn, you talk about perfect story written, he pretty much WrestleMania 26, okay, I'm done, right? And for Taker still hasn't gotten to that point, basically, where Shawn Michaels is and all of that. So I don't know. I guess at this point, Taker is looking for either Vince McMahon, Shawn, Triple H. I guess he's looking for that infamous conversation where it's time, right? But at the same time, he also let it be known that the last thing he wants to do is outstay his welcome. He wants to continue to contribute, but he doesn't want to overstay. You look at it and you're like, well, goddamn, dude, you've done 30+ years. Like, how much more do you need to do, right? But, to each its own, because it's like, if you're feeling it, mind, body, and soul, there isn't nothing that anybody is gonna tell you otherwise. You're gonna keep doing what you until you're ready to hang it up, basically, right? But for the record, he is still dealing with physical problems, but somehow he's able to rise to the occasions whenever they need him and everything. You know, another thing I wish that would have been covered during this conversation with Steve Austin, I wish they would have talked a little bit more about Taker's thoughts on the current WWE product. You know, what is he noticing from this current talent, the up and coming talent? You know, what are his hopes for the future, for the roster, for Vince McMahon? You know, what is his thoughts about how well successfully WWE has expanded over the years globally and everything? It really would have been nice to hear him talk about those aspects as well. Another thing that would have been really great to hear Taker talk about is put him on the hot seat. Be like, hey, when it's time for you to go into the WWE Hall of Fame, you know, they want you to speak. You know, are you down with speaking? You know, because you've done something like this, and you know, are you going to be down with speaking at a podium? You know, how are you envisioning it going down? You know, do you see yourself, Mark Calloway, essentially speaking on behalf of the Undertaker? Like, you know, what's your thoughts about all of that? This was such a fascinating interview on so many levels, but the number one thing I take away from this interview is that this is officially the red carpet that's being rolled out in a couple of different phases and ultimately setting up the Undertaker for going into the Hall of Fame. Folks, fans are already going to have that rapport of, oh, you know, hey, we saw Taker, you know, he did this, he did that. Now, I know some people will counter right back and they'll say, well, not for nothing, Lee, but off and on over the years, we have seen a little bit of Taker kind of intimate and say little things here and there, things of that nature. And I'll say to you, yeah, that's very true. But something of the magnitude of what we had got tonight, and on the magnitude of the fact that so many people access the WWE network and everything, like, yeah, it's a much bigger, much grander scale and everything. So for me, like I said a few seconds ago, it is just rolling out the red carpet, the beginning, essentially, of the end of Undertaker's career, where they are WWE, that is, they're doing their best to humanize the hell out of Undertaker as eventually he goes in the Hall of Fame, and we're already going to be accustomed to hearing how he is speaking outside of the Undertaker character and everything, right? But yeah, those are just some of the questions I wish that would have been approached as well. I would have also loved to have heard from him who are some of the guys that he's looking at that maybe some folks still haven't either quite come around on supporting just yet, or who is, you know, nobody's talking about this person right now, but watch this person. I would have loved to have heard from Taker, you know, okay, you know, who should we be watching? I would have loved to have heard that. I would have also loved to have heard from him, you know, what were some of his favorite feuds? What were some of his, you know, best rivalries in his book and everything? You know, this is an opportunity where, and it wasn't 2 hours. They were only interviewing him for, I think it was an hour and 38 minutes, right? But I mean, hey, 90-minute plus, I'll take it. It's fucking good, right? It's good shit. This is actually the real good shit. But yeah, there's like so many other questions that, but just off the top of my head, those are some of the ones that I'm thinking about. I would have loved to heard addressed, and I'm sure some of you guys would have probably had some other questions you would have also liked to throw in there as well for Taker to address. But overall, it was a great first episode of Broken Skull Sessions with Undertaker. Like I said at the very top, if you didn't get a chance to check it out, do yourselves a favor and definitely check it out. You won't be disappointed. If you never had the WWE network, they're always offering a free trial version of it for at least a month. Go out of your way. It's worth the free trial. It is definitely worth the free trial. And yeah, check it out on that note. So, all right, that is going to do it for this review. I appreciate everybody's patience and kicking on back and checking this out. If you had appreciated this and maybe in the near future would like me to review more Broken Skull Sessions, definitely do me a favor, leave the feedback, leave the comments, let me know what you had thought about this first episode with Taker. Most importantly, if you're new, welcome, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out, and the thumbs up, it's greatly appreciated. Thumbs up, all that good jazz. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, use keywords the RCWR show. And until next go round, wishing all y'all to be safe, most importantly, be kind to one another. Adios.